against Bitcoin.
It's going up forevermore.
You're against Bitcoin, you're against freedom.
Being forced to make these gut-wrenching decisions because our money is broken. For the beleaguered American middle class, Bitcoin is the off-ramp from the inflation highway of doom. If the world were on a Bitcoin standard and our money held its value, we would all have the ability to live more abundant lives. Bitcoiners have it right. Fix the money, fix the world.
Yo, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Simply Bitcoin. What a historic week it has been in Nashville. An incredible event that was thrown in Nashville by the Bitcoin Mag team. Shouts out to the whole Bitcoin Mag team. They did an incredible job. Yes, you heard it here first, or rather you heard it correctly. Bitcoin is entering the mainstream consciousness. And I know a lot of Bitcoiners aren't that happy about Bitcoin and politics being commingled, but politicians have landed on our front door for good reason, because Bitcoiners are right. You just heard RFK Jr. say what we've been saying for a long time. If you fix the money, you fix the world. And I think this was a historic event, an incredible moment in the Bitcoin history. Bitcoin's been going for 15 years, and now we are finally being recognized. I think this is further testament to what we say here all the time. The Bitcoin movement is incredibly strong, and now everyone is waking up to the fact that the money is broken. And of course, as politicians are going to do what politicians do best, and they're going to speak in ways to make them vote for you. Well, it was a historic event. Everyone was freaking out about Trump speaking at the Bitcoin conference. It was hectic at the venue because of the Secret Service. It made it a little different than years past, but I think there was a lot of defining conversations coming out from the Bitcoin conference. There was bipartisan support for Bitcoin from both sides of the aisle, people waking up to the idea that Bitcoin really is an asset, really is a money that needs to be embraced in the United States. And of course, as Bitcoiners, we love the grassroots movement of Bitcoin. It's about the individual getting more power, more sovereignty. But now we're realizing that the politicians, the state is acknowledging Bitcoin as a movement, and they're looking to garner your vote. They're out here politicking. They're out here doing the speeches. They're out here saying our rhetoric, and the Bitcoin signal is making it to the mainstream. So today's show, we are going to cover a lot of different clips coming out of the Bitcoin conference. We're going to start with, of course, some numbers, a very bullish prediction by Michael Saylor. The news, we're going to cover what actually came out of the Trump speech. Cynthia Lummis, Vivek Ramaswamy, Ro Khanna, Ron Paul was there, absolute legend. And of course, RFK Jr., and just a lot of incredible signal coming out. And then the culture. I'm going to cover the response from the legacy media in regards to Trump being at the Bitcoin conference. And we'll see what happens. Are we breaking the echo chamber? Are we getting the Bitcoin signal outside of just the Bitcoin echo chamber? I think we are. I think we are finally entering the mainstream consciousness. It's still early. Yes, it is still early in Bitcoin, but now you're realizing that everything we've been saying for a long, long time is finally gaining to the surface, and more people are waking up to the fact that Bitcoin is here. It is not going away. And people need to embrace Bitcoin. So, of course, we are an American-centric show. We are in America. And as much as we, as Bitcoiners, probably don't care so much about politics, it is becoming very clear that politicians are caring about Bitcoin now. And I would argue this is a good thing. Yes, I know Bitcoin is apolitical, but that's why Bitcoin is political. We all know here, if you watch Simply Bitcoin with us every single day, it's all about the money. It will always be about the money. Politics is just an organization of power, and they get their power from the money printer. And this is where we are, guys. This is where we are in the story. Anyways, as you can tell, it's your boy Opti. I am hosting today. Nico couldn't necessarily fit this in with his flight. He thought he figured it out where he could get off his flight from Nashville, end up on the show, but he's running a little late. So I had to call in some friends here for today's show. Me and Chris Alamo are going to hold it down. Shouts out to Chris Alamo. Good to have you, bro. Good to hang out with you in Nashville. How about before you start, what's your takeaway in regards to the Bitcoin conference in general? What you've been at the Bitcoin conference, you've literally done the programming for the Bitcoin conference. So how is this year different than years past?
This is what winning's like, Opti. You know, we have the politicians pandering to us. I know many Bitcoiners, myself included, you know, we don't like politics, but what's that famous quote? You may not like politics, but politics likes you. But instead of, you know, us trying to simp for them, they're simping for us. So like I said, this is what winning looks like. They realize that Bitcoiners, and I know crypto lumped in, they're looking at this and they're looking at this as a serious voting block. So, you know, as Bitcoin goes up in purchasing power and us are slowly getting richer over time, they're realizing the weight that our voice carries in the United States. I think the statistic was in the United States by 2024, 147 million Americans have touched Bitcoin and crypto at some point over the history of their lives. Wow. If you think about it, if there's 330 million people that, you know, live in the United States, that's a big freaking deal. Obviously, some people have lost those coins along the way. Some people have gotten wrecked and sold it. Many of them are crypto people, which I assume, but you know, at the end of the day, we're a growing voter block, and Opti, it's up to us, you know, you and me and all the Bitcoin community to keep educating people about Bitcoin, not crypto, and hold your own keys. You know, many people like to believe, oh, I got Bitcoin on Coinbase, or I've got, you know, this random meme token on Coinbase. You know, they're holding your keys. You're not self-sovereign. So, you know, Bitcoin only. Take self-custody of your Bitcoin and then become more self-sovereign, become based, eat some meat, have a bunch of babies, you know, build your community. So, but yeah, it's great to have the politicians simping for us.
Oh man, love the simping. Absolutely love the simping. But I mean, it's really a trend that I've been seeing recently is as much as, you know, we all probably get the ick in regards to politicians talking about Bitcoin. I think it's very important for us Bitcoiners to, in fact, get involved with what's going on in our communities. You know, at the ground level, get involved with our communities, make sure that people are hearing about the Bitcoin signal. People are waking up to not only the truth about Bitcoin, but how this will empower our communities, empower the individuals. And so I know as much as Bitcoiners love to tune out, go enjoy their lives, you know, live and let live, like don't tread on me, libertarian memes. I think it's very important, especially as young people, to get involved moving forward so that we can correct the course of humanity and, of course, get everyone on the Bitcoin standard. So, man, incredible. And I would argue historic weekend in Nashville. And, man, we're here. We're on the main stage, and you just love to see it. Anyways, before we move on, of course, we got to pay the bills here. So shout out to our boys at Bitcoin Well. We were hanging out with Adam O'Brien all weekend and his lovely wife. We were talking about the future of Bitcoin Well, where we're going, what's going to happen. A lot of incredible stuff coming out from Bitcoin Well. But, of course, we got to plug the Bitcoin Well, wishing well. If you guys know, once you sign up to Bitcoin Well, you get some coins to toss into the Bitcoin Wishing Well with a chance to win 1 million sats. So once you sign up, you're in the Bitcoin Well dashboard. Go into the Bitcoin Well rewards, go into My Rewards, redeem, and then you can throw a coin into the Wishing Well. So pull out your Lightning wallets right now. We're going to give some free sats for you guys. And it'll come up, scan it with your QR code. We'll see. Yeah, I don't have my wallet.
Am I about to scoop this, Opti? Am I about to scoop this?
Yes, you can. Chris, you can scoop the Wishing Well sats right now. But when you sign up, you get 5 free tosses into the Wishing Well, and you got a chance to win 1 million sats. And the funniest part is all of us this weekend, we were like little kids with the Wishing Well. Like Adam would pull it up, and we're like, how many sats did we get? We're walking home from the conference, and, you know, we're all just trying to get some free sats. Every sat counts. This is the way. Anyways, guys, let's get into the show because we have a lot to talk about.
Bitcoin numbers.
Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Is your seed phrase really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of just writing them on paper. Don't store your generational wealth on paper. Paper is prone to water damage, fire damage. You want to put your generational wealth on one of the strongest metals on planet Earth, titanium. Your words are actually stamped into this metal plate with this hammer and these letter stamps. And once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamped seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin with peace of mind for the long haul. Stamp your seed on Stampseed.
Let's go.
Want to give a shout out to James Stampseed. He was at the conference. He was giving out the little dongles, the things that you hit. Definitely check out the QR code to get your set for, $120. You get 15% off with the promo code Simply. James is the man. I know Opti, Nico have had him on before. Actually, I was on an episode with him. We were also on the news desk at Pacific Bitcoin there. So check out Stampseed. There, James is an awesome dude, and they've got an awesome product there. They also had the limited edition Bitcoin 2024 stamps or plates. I think they ran out. Opti, I don't know if you saw, but he was running low after I think just the second day already.
Yeah, I think they were pretty much sold out. I actually was like, yo, hold me one. And then I got busy on Friday and I went back and I think he was at the Trump speech. So James, I'm sorry. I missed you to actually get my Stampseed kit. I needed to get some more plates and stuff, but hey, man, appreciate you, James. Appreciate the Stampseed. Of course, scan the QR code. Make it easy for you guys. Make sure you're not leaving your seed trays in a piece of paper on your stock floor, in your stock drawer. All right, guys, I'm over here on Clark Moody's dashboard, and of course, I think I said this last week, I am going to filter out most of the numbers and just get to the numbers that you care about. Of course, the Bitcoin price. We did see the Bitcoin price pump a little bit. I saw it did get up to 69K. Apparently, we got a little correction. The current Bitcoin price is at $67,000. And the only other number that we really need to know is the block height. TikTok next block, Bitcoin is working exactly as designed, and we are currently at 854,525. If you're still on the Gregorian calendar, you are you're in the past, man. The only time that matters is the block height. All right, so I told you, there's a lot of incredible moments coming out of the Bitcoin conference, but of course, this wouldn't be a Monday show on Simply Bitcoin if we didn't give you guys some bull sauce. And I think if you watch Michael Saylor's speech, we got one of those moments. We got an incredible bullish prediction on where Bitcoin is going. Of course, we all know the meme. It's going up forever. Infinity divided by 21 million. Hard cap supply, which means the number of Bitcoin has to go up. It's the only thing that cannot be debased. So the price is going up forever. But let's hear Saylor talk about why and where he thinks the Bitcoin price is going. So here's a clip from the Bitcoin conference in Nashville. Of course, highly recommend you watch the whole speech. And there's a lot of incredible speeches, but we got a good little soundbite for you guys right here.
Here's my macro Bitcoin forecast. It's 21 years. Goes out to the year 2045. What do I think will happen? Well, I've got a bear case and a bull case, but what I think will happen is that 55% ARR goes to 50%, 45, 40, 35, 30, 25, 20. It's between 50 and 20. It'll gradually decelerate till it's growing about twice as fast as the S&P index. And at that rate, Bitcoin's $13 million a coin in the year 2045. 13 million. It could be a 3 million bear case. It could be a 49 million bull case. But what is Bitcoin? 7% of the world's assets then. What about the rest of the assets? Well, I actually think that AIs and technology are going to revolutionize tech. We had no companies worth $1 trillion. Then we had a bunch of $1 trillion companies. You're going to see more because you're going to see companies with 100,000 AIs and no employees, and they're going to do the work of companies that used to have 100,000 employees. You're going to see mega corps develop, shipping robots and self-driving cars, and a company that gives a personal physician to 1 billion people without any doctors on the payroll. So clearly, equity is going to grow fast. Gold's going to get demonetized. Land will be less monetized. But look, here's the future in 2045. Doesn't look that revolutionary. It looks like today. It's
absolutely love a bearish 33 mil by 2045, a bullish, 49 mil per coin his like kind of, normal prediction is $13 million. I think at this point, Chris, is even Saylor being bearish on the Bitcoin price? What, 2025, 21 years from now, we got a range from 3 million to 40 plus $million, which average price of around 13 mil. Of course, we are just throwing numbers, but at least we got a time frame and we got a price prediction out of Saylor, which you usually don't get. He's usually just like, yeah, it's going to be millions of dollars eventually. And here we are. But the signal remains the same, guys. Bitcoin is going to go up. Bitcoin is going to take a lot of the value coming out from other assets. He even mentioned Bitcoin demonetizing gold in 20 years, which I think that might be the most bullish prediction out of that little clip that we saw this morning. But I find it interesting when he ended that clip, what he said. He's like, the world in 20 years won't look too much different than it does today. And I think as a lot of Bitcoiners, we do have this view that Bitcoin will take all of the value out of all assets ever. I know we talk about this constantly. The total asset market is $900 trillion. And a lot of Bitcoiners get really, really bullish. And like all of that $900 trillion has to go into Bitcoin. It will eventually go into Bitcoin. But I think on a more conservative level, we know that Bitcoin will take a small, if not significant chunk of that total value, which means that the Bitcoin price is going up. And it always reminds me of when you have these conversations with normies, with pre-coiners, with people that aren't Bitcoiner, they always say the same thing. I'm late to Bitcoin. I missed the Bitcoin boat. But I think as the data keeps coming out, as we're seeing Bitcoin enter the mainstream consciousness, most people are realizing that we are still early to Bitcoin. If you have these conversations with people outside of the Bitcoin echo chamber, you realize most people either A, don't understand Bitcoin, or, have never even touched Bitcoin. Yes, we have a huge voting block in regards to Bitcoin and Bitcoin adoption. I think the number right now is like 40 million. Like Chris was just saying, we'll have 100 million plus people that have touched Bitcoin. It is still early in this game of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin still has a lot of runway to go. I mean, actually, I'm going to save the Trump prediction on the Bitcoin price because that was actually hilarious. But I do have a kind of good story. I was hanging out with Aladdin of BTC Trading Cards, and he was telling me about this event he did for the trading cards. It wasn't a Bitcoin event, but they showed up. It was like a trading card event. And the amount of people that came up to him and said something on the lines of, oh, I didn't know Bitcoin was doing trading cards. Oh, I didn't know the Bitcoin CEO had a trading card company. And this just goes to show that we are in an echo chamber. If you go to these conferences, and I also heard a lot of people say, like, it's so refreshing going to a conference and everyone understanding what is going on, and you don't have to try to orange pill someone. Our community, or rather our understanding of how the world is, it's still very small in regards to the grand scheme of things right now. So there's still a lot of room to run. I'm sure if you still have normie friends, you still talk to normal people out there that aren't Bitcoiners, they don't understand what's going on. And as we move forward, more people are going to start to wake up. This is why the Bitcoin Conference in Nashville, I think, was such a historic moment, because now it's getting into the mainstream. We have politicians entering on our front doors talking about Bitcoin, trying to get the Bitcoin vote. And you just once you zoom out a little bit, you're like, man, it is still early. People really don't understand Bitcoin at all. And this is why we do what we do, is so that more people wake up to Bitcoin. As this hat that I got at the conference says, we are the Bitcoin propaganda department. And it's not about just spreading bullish news and getting people wrecked on price predictions. It's showing them that there is a better alternative. And of course, that is Bitcoin. And you need to get some just in case it catches on, as Satoshi was saying all those years back. But man, it's so early. And what do you think about this prediction, Chris? 3 million bearish in 21 years, up to $40 million plus in 21 years. Is even Saylor being bearish? What's your thoughts on that prediction?
He's bearish, dude. He doesn't. He thinks the dollar's going to be around in 2045. I hope our kids, Opti, when we're old men in 21 years, are our future kids that aren't born yet are like, Dad, what's the dollar? They see this presentation from 21 years ago. They're like, Dad, what's this guy Michael Saylor talking about? I don't know what a dollar is anymore. I think that would be the true thing. No, all joking aside, CK Snarks, good buddy of mine, my old boss at Bitcoin Magazine. He's now at the Human Rights Foundation. He actually did a recent episode of What Bitcoin Did with Peter McCormack, and he says no one's bullish enough, and he truly believes that. I know, Michael Saylor coming in with these bullish-looking predictions of $49 million per Bitcoin price. But I think CK has this point of like breaking it down and kind of narrowing the focus. CK always says like some of the best developers for Bitcoin aren't even born yet. Some of the latest innovations on, the Lightning Network or other layer 2 layers or layer 3 layers haven't been adopted or fully utilized yet. We're still really early. I know it's hard to believe with, Dom and I were going around the conference or around Nashville asking just random people, normies or Uber drivers, oh, have you heard of Bitcoin? And they're like, normally they say yes. And then like, oh, what do you think one Bitcoin's worth right now? And the general answers from many people, $500, $1,000, $5,000. And we're like, nope, much higher. And they were like $67,000. And the sheer look of shock on their faces when they were like, oh my gosh, I didn't know Bitcoin was that expensive. And then I think the immediate normie or people that aren't in the space, their reaction is, well, I can never afford one Bitcoin. I can't afford $67,000 right now. But the beauty of Bitcoin is it can be subdivided into sats. Obviously, what was it at the beginning of the show? I think it's $1 buys you about 14,090 sats, 1,490 sats. So yeah, you can buy fractions of Bitcoin. Obviously, many people advocate for DCA, dollar cost average. So you can buy a fraction of a Bitcoin and, stay humble, stack sats, as Matt Odell always says.
Let's go. Well, one of my favorite response to, Bitcoin or what's the price of Bitcoin? And they're like, oh, Bitcoin doesn't have value. And you're like, yeah, well, just like, give me a Bitcoin. If it literally has no value, then how about you please just give me a Bitcoin? Because, I would like more internet nerd money. It'd be great. But hey, can't just give away Bitcoins.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, guys. Well, let's get into the meat of today's conversation because this is what everyone's talking about. This is what really is getting the Bitcoin signal out of the echo chamber is Trump being at the Bitcoin conference, the bipartisan support that we saw come out of the Bitcoin conference, basically politicians simping for Bitcoiners at the Bitcoin conference, which you just love to see. But let's get into this.
The Daily News.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation Devices. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US. It's fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a simple feature phone. So you will know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes. Experience the peace of mind that comes with taking ownership of your own keys. After a massive sellout during Bitcoin Miami 2023, the Passport is back in stock at foundationdevices.com. Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, completely air-gapped security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. If you're thinking about getting your Bitcoin off exchanges, this is the one for you. Check out the Passport link in the show notes below to learn more.
Saying that if I am elected, it will be the policy of my administration, United States of America, to keep 100% of all the Bitcoin the U.S. government currently holds or acquires into the future. We'll keep 100%. I hope you do well, please. This will serve in effect as the core of the strategic national Bitcoin stockpile.
Absolutely love it. Absolutely love to see. Of course, there's a lot of conversations coming out of the Bitcoin conference. There's a lot of, talk about Trump even being at the Bitcoin conference. So today we're going to unpack some of the things that he said at the Bitcoin conference. Oh, sorry, I put on the wrong QR code. Scan the QR code over there for a Passport by Foundation. All right, let's break down some of the things that Trump said at the Bitcoin conference in Nashville. Of course, you just heard him mention of the fact that they want to hold on to Bitcoin for a while, a strategic Bitcoin reserve. We are seeing that now Bitcoin is being embraced by politicians. Of course, we've been covering this for a couple of weeks. The Republican Party has made a huge pivot into Bitcoin. They're realizing that the Bitcoin voting bloc is a huge untapped market of freedom-minded, American loving, or rather, what America stands for loving people. They want to see the country that they live in prosper versus what we're seeing on the opposite side. You know, we say it all the time. It's Bitcoin or slavery. And one side of the party is seemingly pro-CBDC and the other side of the party is anti-CBDC, embracing Bitcoin. So I got a little breakdown here from Dylan LeClaire in regards to the speech. You can watch the whole speech. I know a lot of Bitcoiners were saying, oh, it's a little lackluster. Maybe they could have angled the speech a little better. Maybe they weren't so sure that the Bitcoiners in that room were very tapped in. I think people were really hoping for incredible stuff coming out of the Bitcoin Nashville conference and Trump's speech. But overall, if you really listen to it, besides the fact that some of it was just like a generic presidential rally speech here, he did say a lot of Bitcoin stuff. So Dylan LeClaire breaking it down. Trump goes, Bitcoin probably overtakes gold. I will fire Gary Gensler. And if you watch the speech, that might have been one of the funniest points of this speech. He said it's like, I will fire Gary Gensler. The crowd freaks out. He's like, oh wait, you guys love this. I'm gonna say it again. I will fire Gary Gensler, and got even more of a standing ovation, which was absolutely hilarious. He also said what we say here all the time: of hodl your Bitcoin. Hold on to your Bitcoin for as long as possible. He said it, never sell your Bitcoin. So at least to some extent, the speechwriter is starting to tap into the Bitcoin message. He also mentioned Bitcoiners saw inflation before anyone else, which RFK also basically said in his speech. The RFK speech set a really high bar for Trump. You know, I know RFK is an independent candidate, so he's got a little more leeway to say things that Trump could never say. So he set the bar really high. And so I noticed a lot of trends out there. There was a theme from a lot of Bitcoiners like, man, I really wish Trump did more. But I think just the fact that he showed up to a Bitcoin conference, the fact that he felt he needed to show up to a Bitcoin conference and talk to a room of Bitcoiners just shows how far the Bitcoin movement has gone. Again, going to some more of these quotes. The danger to the dollar comes from Washington, not Bitcoin. I think that was one of the most defining points of the conversation, where he's starting to acknowledge that, as he used to say in the past, the swamp is literally the biggest threat to America, not just because of all the corruption that we've seen, but the fact that they have the money printer, that they are printing obscene amount of money for all of this ridiculous stuff. And if we get back to a Bitcoin standard, it's going to be a lot harder for them to do this. And then, of course, I think the new meme that came out was the U.S. to create a strategic Bitcoin stockpile. Now, I know a lot of people were talking about that he dropped the ball at the very end of the speech when he said, what did he say? Goodbye and thank you to everyone. You know, have fun playing with your Bitcoin and crypto things. And everyone was like, what? Like, does he even understand Bitcoin? What's going on here? But again, also, he said it again, guys. He doubled down, or rather tripled down, on freeing Ross Ulbricht on day one. And if you were at the conference, you saw that the Bitcoin Mag team had the shirt, you know, free Ross day one. So he's doubling down on that idea of freeing Ross, which is absolutely incredible to see. You just love to see it. And man, that's the stuff that makes me feel good. Though I will mention something which may not be the hottest take. Of course, the biggest news coming out of the Bitcoin conference, Trump's speech, is the fact that he is talking about embracing Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset. But there was a point in that speech where he also said he would not allow for a CBDC to happen in America. But then kind of in a, you know, for us Bitcoiners that are aware of the Bitcoin dollar thesis, where he kind of embraced stablecoins. So I was kind of joking to everyone at the conference that, wow, you know, the biggest thing I learned from that speech was that Trump is a Tether maxi. Who saw that one coming? Mark Goodwin and Whitney Webb definitely saw that one coming. So if you haven't heard the Bitcoin dollar thesis, I think we're seeing this play out in real time. So while there is some good in this, there's also some things to be, you know, consider. There's some things that, if you are a Bitcoiner and you're reading between the lines, things to consider and be a little weary of. Of course, most Bitcoiners are skeptical of politicians in general. I think Sophie had like one of the funniest takes in regards to the speech that I heard the whole time, and is like, I don't think Trump even read the speech. And he was like questioning his own speechwriter in real time. Like, he was getting orange pilled and questioning the speechwriter the whole time and asking questions in real time to his own speech, which I thought was hilarious. And the tweet that I put out in regards to the Trump speech. Of course, I was just making jokes and lols on Twitter. But the one thing I heard Trump say was that he wants to pump our bags 4,000%. So, hey, if we see a cool, 40x with Trump being elected, I think we can take that. I don't know what 40x would be in 4 years, but I think that's like $2 million per Bitcoin or something like that. So, hey, bullish stuff in regards to what we're hearing. Of course, as Bitcoiners, sometimes we just take things and we always flip it and be bullish in regards to anyone talking about Bitcoin. But of course, the show was not just Trump talking about Bitcoin. I think there was a very good political strategic move by directly following up the Bitcoin speech with Cynthia Lummis coming out, announcing the legislation for a strategic Bitcoin reserve in the U.S. And I think what we have to remember is Trump is the leading political candidate for the Republican Party. So even though if you're a Bitcoiner and you watch that speech, you might have gotten the vibe that, oh, this felt just like a normal political presidential candidate rally speech. You got to remember, he can't fully step out the Overton window. And even though he's at a Bitcoin conference and there's a lot of stuff us Bitcoiners wanted to see and hear, he's still out here rallying for the presidential candidacy. So he can't go out of the Overton window too much, but the programming at the Bitcoin Mag, where he announces the Bitcoin reserve strategy plan, the bill, Cynthia Lummis follows it up directly and starts to throw the sauce, has the legislation in hand. So you can see there is a strategic attempt at exposing the conservative party to Bitcoin, to the fact that, hey, there's things going on in Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a huge political movement, and now they're waking up to this. So Cynthia Lummis followed the Trump speech announcing the Bitcoin strategic reserve asset legislation. And shouts out to my boy Dom, because he kind of just summed it up. The Bitcoin reserve bill announced by Senator Lummis starts with 210K Bitcoin, which I think is, all of the coin that the U.S. government stole from entrepreneurs, and some of it from Mt. Gox and Silk Road, all that stuff. But over the next 5 years, the U.S. will stack 1 million Bitcoin held for a minimum of 25 years to reduce the U.S. national debt, which would be absolutely incredible. Obviously, as a Bitcoiner, as an individual, I do have, and maybe this is the contrarian take, as much as I love to see nation states adopt Bitcoin, El Salvador, we've seen that in the past. The U.S. announcing that they're going to also do a Bitcoin reserve asset strategy. I'm about the individual. I love seeing individuals save in Bitcoin, but I think this just goes to show that Bitcoin has entered into the mainstream consciousness, and everyone is waking up to the fact that they need Bitcoin. Bitcoin is for anyone. Bitcoin is for enemies. So we've known this was going to happen since the inception of Bitcoin. As much as we want individuals to embrace Bitcoin, we knew nation states were going to also try to adopt Bitcoin. We knew banks were eventually going to adopt Bitcoin. We knew organizations and businesses are going to adopt Bitcoin. So as much as I think this is a big moment in Bitcoin history, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't mention the fact that I get most excited about individuals embracing Bitcoin. And that's what this is really about, bringing individual sovereignty back to the grassroots, back to you and I and the layman out there that really need Bitcoin. But we all have a similar problem. We all have broken money. But again, for you guys out there that are like, oh, I don't care about Trump. Trump is divisive. He's XYZ. It wasn't just Trump talking about Bitcoin. And I think this is one of the biggest signals coming out of the Bitcoin conference. Of course, we have RFK Jr. that really upped the bar with his speech. You can tell that RFK Jr. had a year to study Bitcoin. You can tell that he's farther along down the rabbit hole than Trump is. Trump is still kind of new to the Bitcoin space. He's realizing, oh, wait, there's a whole untapped market out here. RFK's speech, if you haven't seen it, he sounded like a Bitcoiner. There was a lot of stuff that he was saying that Trump could never say, obviously, because Trump is still in the Overton window. RFK Jr., his polling numbers aren't as high as Trump, so he can say a lot more stuff that no other politician could say. Of course, RFK Jr. said he would sign an executive order for the U.S. to buy 550 Bitcoin a day until they build a reserve of 4 million Bitcoin if he's elected president. You know, RFK Jr. was saying a lot of things that us Bitcoiners love, of course, fix the money, fix the world. You can tell that he really has put in the work to understand Bitcoin. And, you know, RFK Jr. is running as an independent, but it wasn't just RFK Jr. There was a really good moment of Donald Trump Jr. on the news desk. And he was a little more open about the fact that he's still new to the Bitcoin space. And one of the main themes that I noticed was there was a lot of political views on Bitcoin. You know, the Daily Wire had a booth there. And I remember talking with, I'm blanking on his name, but one of the...
Michael Knowles.
Michael Knowles, exactly. Speaking with Michael Knowles. And he was just wholly impressed by the overlap between what the Daily Wire viewers were and the Bitcoin viewers. And he's like, man, I didn't realize so many people knew who I was. And it was like me and Mike Germano talking. It's like, yes, like this is the overlap. This is a huge freedom movement. We care about our country. We care about the future of humanity. And Bitcoin is the solution. It is simply Bitcoin. We obviously think there is no political solution to the political problems. It's about the money. It's about fixing the money, fixing the world. But even Donald Trump Jr. was there. And when he was talking, he's like, man, you know, I love this movement. I love what you guys are doing. Though, you know, we can kind of give him some feedback and some slack for the fact that I'm pretty sure he was pumping a shit coin. So he's going through the rounds. He's starting to learn. But he said, you know, Bitcoin is a hedge against inflation and tyrannical governments. He acknowledged that he was new to the space. He's still learning, that they are actively involved and wanting to learn about Bitcoin. They're curious about the Bitcoin movement. So again, we have Trump, the Trump administration. We have RFK Jr. We had Vivek Ramaswamy basically saying what we say all the time, that Bitcoin should be apolitical. It should be neutral and bipartisan. It's the Biden administration that had made it partisan, that had made it political. And we're all waking up to the fact that, hey, you need Bitcoin. If you want to thrive going into this next decade, you need to hold some Bitcoin. And as a country, the U.S. needs to hold some Bitcoin. Or rather, as I would say, I was really more on the lines of, I would love to have heard Trump just say, hey, we're going to get out of your way, you know, eliminate the taxes on Bitcoin, minimize regulation. And you kind of heard that with him saying firing Gary Gensler, which was incredible. Of course, we also got U.S. Congressman Ro Khanna, which is a Democrat, saying that the U.S. needs to be leaders in Bitcoin, that let America lead and embrace Bitcoin instead of fighting Bitcoin, which, of course, this is a bipartisan issue. We're seeing people from both sides of the aisle realize that, hey, not only is there a voting block here that's untapped, but the policies around Bitcoin from both sides of the aisle need to embrace Bitcoin, or else they're going to have fun staying poor, as we always say as Bitcoiners. Or another incredible story that we saw, you know, we've been talking smack about Elizabeth Warren on the show. She's been leading the anti-crypto army for years now. The Massachusetts Senate candidate John Deaton, who's running against Elizabeth Warren, announced 82% of his entire net worth is in Bitcoin. I'm reminded of RFK Jr. talking about when he got a settlement from Monsanto. He went all in on Bitcoin. So you're seeing that the Bitcoin movement is getting to the highest positions of power because they are embracing Bitcoin. They're stacking Bitcoin. They're holding Bitcoin. Yes, there's still a lot of work to do in regards to education, to explaining to them, you know, what's the best way to embrace Bitcoin, how to hold Bitcoin, make sure they have their Bitcoin off of exchanges. There's still a lot of work to do, but we are entering into a new era where Bitcoin is becoming political. Whether we like it or not, Bitcoin is becoming political, and they realize there's an untapped market here as Bitcoiners, and they have to, you know, come to us. They're going to have to ask us, as I've been saying and repeating for the last couple of weeks. As Max Kaiser said, he who has the Bitcoin makes the rules. It's always about the money. It will always be about the money. And we have the best money in the world. So again, I started as an apolitical person when I got into Bitcoin, but now I'm realizing that, hey, if politics is on our front door, I think it's extremely important for Bitcoiners to get involved some way. Not necessarily need to go to the federal level, but on the local level, I think it's important that Bitcoiners from both sides of the aisle get involved with politics in some way, whether it's just talking to influential people, whether it's actually getting involved. Us young Bitcoiners, millennials and Zoomers, we have a lot of time to influence the world and show that Bitcoin is the best way to save your money, that Bitcoin will fix the world. And if you're fighting Bitcoin, you're going to get wrecked. And on that note, we did have this very interesting story come out July 27th, which was the Democrats wrote to the DNC asking to shift away from the anti-Bitcoin stance, responding to Trump speaking at the Bitcoin conference. We heard that there was going to be rumors of Kamala Harris going to the conference. She pulled out last minute, and we talked about that on Friday. But you're seeing that people are in the Democratic Party moving away from Elizabeth Warren's anti-crypto stance. They're trying to separate themselves from the Biden administration fighting Bitcoin. As we say all the time, you're either pro Bitcoin or you're pro CBDCs. And it's becoming very clear that if you're fighting Bitcoin, you're a CBDC maxi. And even though there was some stuff in that conversation, in that speech by Trump, where he was embracing the dollar, talking about stable coins will proliferate US dollar dominance to South America, to third world countries, you're starting to see that no matter what, the Bitcoin signal is starting to spread into the highest positions of power. And as a Bitcoiner, you just love to see it. I had a conversation with Nolan at the after party, and he literally came and was like, Afti, remember, I've been telling you this. I was telling you this on the breakup every single day that we are winning, and it just feels so good that we're winning, and now they're embracing us. So as much as I feel we need to keep our head on a swivel, you're starting to see that the Bitcoin signal is going mainstream. Yes, we are still early. Yes, this is the first innings. Yes, this was a historical moment in Nashville due to the Bitcoin Magazine conference. But you're seeing that they are starting to, even if it's just a little bit, understand that embracing Bitcoin is good for any country. And now they have to do it. So as much as a Bitcoiner, we're kind of like, okay, politicians are here. Who cares? I really don't care about politics. I'm a Bitcoiner. Politicians are going to lie. They're going to say whatever they have to get votes. Now we have been legitimized. In the last year, we had Larry Fink embrace Bitcoin with the ETFs. We have Bitcoin as a presidential talking point. And now it's going to continue to increase. Like we say all the time, whether you like politics or not, whether you're interested in politics or not, politics is very much interested in you. And if that is the case, I think it's more important than ever as Bitcoiners that we get involved some way, that you out there make your voice heard. Of course, you can say voting is iffy. You can talk about voting in regards to it being fake. But we believe the best vote is with your pocketbook. And I know a lot of us Bitcoiners in America don't want to leave our country, though we have the option now with Bitcoin. And this is all about optionality. This is a freedom movement. And we should have the option to save in something that isn't designed to steal from us, which is, of course, Bitcoin. So as much as maybe politicians, this is just, this is just fluff. They're just saying what needs to be said. Now we are seeing that the Overton window is shifting and the Bitcoin conversation is legitimized. It is becoming a very important movement. I think we just hit the main stage with this conversation in Nashville, and I'm going to cover that in the culture, some of the corporate press response to Bitcoin. But we're here now, and we are a legitimate movement. No longer are we just internet nerd money. No longer is it just fake money on the internet. It is a real money. It is a real thing. And we have the highest positions of power starting to embrace Bitcoin. Anyways, Chris, what's your takeaway from all the political rhetoric we heard at the Bitcoin conference in regards to Bitcoin? What's your thoughts on the Trump announcement of Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset? Maybe what were some good points out of the speech that you enjoyed the most?
Yeah, so I got a lot there. So a lot of good comments too. I'm seeing them roll in. So, a lot of people are saying that RFK is potentially going to drop out of the race before come election time. It's just a lot of money to run a campaign, and a lot of people took note of this meeting that RFK actually took a visit to Mar-a-Lago about a month ago, I believe. So, and then right after that, RFK was saying more left-leaning things and posturing more for a way to kind of like seem like he was stealing votes from the Biden administration or the Harris administration now. But the thing that was interesting during during Bitcoin 2024, RFK definitely had a lot of points that aligned more with Bitcoiners. Shouts out to my boy Q. He's been saying this for years. Don't trust what politicians say, trust what politicians do. So, holding politicians to account for the things they say. There was a meme that I saw that someone had a scroll with a laundry list of things that politicians promise on day one and how many of those actually things get enacted. So, a lot of people believe that RFK is going to drop out of the race and, just kind of put his weight behind Trump. And then he would either be head of the EPA or like environmental secretary of the United States government or whatever, if Trump wins. The one thing I was bummed about, and this is kind of, I'm not taking a shot at the Bitcoin community. I love everyone in the community. The thing that kind of bummed me out is everyone cheered louder for firing Gary Gensler versus freeing our boy Ross. You can hate Gary Gensler, but I thought that like the crowd was going to erupt, and there was a loud clap and cheer for free Ross, but it just seemed like there was more people excited about firing Gary Gensler than getting Ross, who's, in my opinion, was been like unfairly prosecuted and basically been in jail for over 10 years now. So I really hope that whoever wins, they free Ross, whether it's Harris, RFK, or Trump. I really think he should be get off on time served. Another thing was that, the stockpiling of strategic reserves. Someone made a point, I think it was Lightning Goats in there, that the 200,000 Bitcoin that they have, a lot of it is kind of stolen from either Bitfinex or Silk Road. I know Odell has this dream that, any confiscated Bitcoin they would use to a burn address instead of holding themselves and basically getting to get the profits. Because then it makes this perverse incentive where it's incentivizing the state to steal your Bitcoin and then just put it on their balance sheet. It's a way to get free and cheap Bitcoin, which I don't think, if this perverse incentive is aligned, show the incentives, I'll show you the outcome. If the government can do this, they definitely will, meaning that they will prosecute Bitcoiners or Bitcoin companies. And like the upside of it is, hey, we get to confiscate this Bitcoin and hold it ourselves. So that's not something that we want to get into the zeitgeist of politicians or something that they look forward to doing or try to strive to do. Shouts out to oh my God, Mark Goodwin and Whitney Webb. They hit the nail on the head. Stable coins, all these politicians are pandering. They don't want a CBDC at the federal level. They said the Federal Reserve is not going to create one. But at the end of the day, stable coins are just as good, if not better, made by the private sector for a way to be used as CBDC. So, with that said, obviously, use Bitcoin, use it privately. Buy Bitcoin non-KYC, CoinJoin using Join Market. That's kind of the only option right now. But, stable coins can be used to surveil and do probably a better job than whatever the federal government can do. So, there's a lot of things with USDC or Circle or Tether. Basically, Tether made the announcement of freezing 250 million of assets, as well as welcoming the FBI onto their platform. So, buyer beware. I know many people need the dollar, or it's better than their currency, especially those in South America. They want to get out of their hyperinflating currencies and into the dollars, like kind of the best, what is it? Greg Foss's line. It's the best crack house on the street. Be wary, buy Bitcoin instead of using stablecoins. That's my opinion. I know there's volatility that comes with it, where a stablecoin, you're obviously getting a peg to the US dollar in theory. But if you're not using your own bank account, you're using someone else's bank account. And just like with any bank account, they can freeze it if they see fit. Opti, I also talked to Michael Knowles, and he was in between sets. I was like, hey, Michael, how's it going? I've seen your stuff, and one of the lines I first said was like, make sure you're in Bitcoin and not anything else. And he was saying he was in this other, this meme coin making fun of liberals, and he put $1,000 in and went to zero immediately. And then he bought like Shiba Inu because one of his buddies was like, this is going up, and it like tanked on him. He's like, yeah, like I kind of get it now that I lost a bunch of money, not like life-changing money, but lost a bunch of money that I didn't want to lose. He's like, I kind of get it. Go into Bitcoin only. So I was like, and I was like, no, I'm serious. Like, I'm not messing around. He's like, no, I get it. And then his producer was like, hey, we got to wrap up. I'm like, it was nice meeting you. I shook his hand and I was like, if you have any issues, definitely feel free to reach out. And, I don't think anything will come of it, but like at least incepting his mind or trying to orange pill him Bitcoin and Bitcoin only, I think that's a way to help him. I think I hit a lot of points there. I guess the last thing was I felt like Trump's speech fell kind of flat. It was just a long day. It was an hour delay for getting him in there. Obviously the Secret Service was doing a really good job of locking down the area, protecting him, obviously in light of everything that happened, 2 weeks prior. But Nico kind of gave me more of a white pill, and he's like, we kind of got everything we want. Talking about strategic reserve, talking about freeing Ross, talking about, getting rid of Gary Gensler, whether you love him or hate him. He's kind of been hostile to the industry, or not like protecting the industry as some people see. And then also just kind of understanding the importance of this voting block. I think the biggest thing that I was hammering home for 2023, obviously we had Vivek, we had RFK, and we had Tulsi Gabbard. Those are not to call them smaller politicians. They're definitely in the mainstream media and people know of them. But having Trump, a former president, attend a Bitcoin conference. Let me say that again. A former U.S. president. There's only 6 remaining alive U.S. presidents right now, only been 45 in America's history. This is a big fucking deal. Potentially the future president of the United States as well, being president 47. So, like I said, you don't have to simp for politicians, but politicians are simping for us. And this is what winning looks like. Obviously, be leery. You be leery of a fox in the hen house. Always want to keep our guard up, and we don't want to welcome them in with open arms. But what we always say, Bitcoin is the money for enemies, and politicians, whether you love them or hate them, or you see them as an enemy, they can use Bitcoin too. So I think this is very powerful. And, everyone and their mother has heard of, Trump, or, many people around the world, even more than RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, and Vivek. Dom Bay and I were joking. How does the Bitcoin magazine and the conference team top in 2025? I think the only way we go bigger and better is if Elon Musk introduces the Pope, and the Pope, blesses us in Sin City as Opti and I get ready to go out on a drunken bender that weekend, and basically says, the way to save your sins is to buy Bitcoin in order to get into heaven. Start your $10 DCA now. Just skim a little bit off of your donations to church each week into Bitcoin instead. All joking aside, but yeah, I'll end with free Ross.
Doxed.
I'll end with one last thing. So free Ross, I really hope that comes to fruition in the near future. And then I want to repeat something that Matt Odell, my good buddy Matt Odell, said. Unfortunately, right now, aside from Ross being improperly prisoned, the Samurai guys, I won't dox them, but the 2 Samurai developers are currently facing jail time and a trial of their lives. So I hope if Trump gets in, he makes true on his promise to be more lenient on the industry, but also to free them and pardon them for basically being improperly prosecuted for basically making free and open source software, and get rid of all this BS of businesses requiring money services, money services business for creating free and open software. So I'll end on that. Free Samurai, free Ross. That's a wrap.
Love it. Love it. Actually, one thing that I was reminded that Trump said at the conference, which I also kind of thought would have gotten more applause, was he also kind of doubled down on the idea. And of course, as Bitcoiners are like, oh, I don't need a politician to secure this, but he also doubled down on the idea of allowing us to use self-custody, of protecting self-custody in the US. And of course, as Bitcoiners, we're like, thanks, bro, but you can't allow me to do something that you can't stop me to do. But, excuse me. But I thought that was very interesting, that there was a lot of things said in that speech, though there was a lot of fluff. I would also argue it did kind of remind me of the RNC speech that we saw, a couple weeks prior. But again, you got to remember, like Nico was saying, he said a lot of the things that us Bitcoiners should have loved, and he was obviously pandering to Bitcoiners. But the fact that he came to a Bitcoin conference to speak to us, of course, he's still campaigning, so he can't really go outside the Overton window too much. But, following that up with Cynthia Lummis just quickly announcing the Bitcoin Reserve Strategic Reserve Asset Bill and doubling down on this idea, you're seeing that there is a huge curiosity and interest from the Republican Party to embrace Bitcoin. And the very interesting thing is that as this is happening, you're seeing a lot of Democrats also start to kind of push away from being anti-Bitcoin. So again, as much as you may not like Trump, as much as you may think politics have no meaning, that it's all fake, it's all rigged, it's bread and circuses, you're starting to see that both sides of the aisle are waking up to the fact that, hey, you can't fight Bitcoin and expect to be in positions of power anymore. Bitcoin as a movement, as an industry, is become one of the most legitimate things out there. Like we're here. And I think this historic event in Nashville just proves to the world, and maybe even proves to some Bitcoiners themselves, that we are a legitimate movement here. This is a legitimate industry. And if you fight the Bitcoin industry, we will push back, and it's going to become bigger. And I know a lot of Bitcoiners like, oh, I'm tuning out because of politics. Well, sorry, guys. Like, it's only going to get more political as we move forward because of the power that Bitcoin gives back to the individual. So this is where we are in the story, guys. Obviously, we'll continue to cover this. And hopefully this isn't just fluff talk. Hopefully this isn't just him saying what we want to hear, and that these things actually get implemented if he gets elected. And I think really the response is now either side of the aisle is going to have a pro-Bitcoin take. So take all of the bad with the good, that now Bitcoin is on the main stage. It's part of the conversation now. And this is where we are, guys. So this is what winning looks like, as Chris was saying. On that note, guys, let's get into the culture, because I am going to cover the response to Trump being at the Bitcoin conference.
The Daily Culture.
All right, guys, of course. Make sure you are stacking friends who stack sats. Go to orangepilleapp.com, sign up. Make sure you are connecting with Bitcoiners. I had a good talk with Mateo at the conference, and he's game planning and talking about the future. And he was mentioning, like, guys, if you're on the Orange Pill app, talk to your friends. Make sure you are actually connecting. The whole goal of the Orange Pill app is to connect with other Bitcoiners. I also saw a few people coming up to us like, man, I got on the Orange Pill app and there's like 3 Bitcoiners in my space. Like, there's no Bitcoiners anywhere. And you can tell that there's a theme from all of the Bitcoiners that aren't fully in the industry, that aren't like us, that is Bitcoin 24/7. They're like, man, it feels so good interacting with people that just get it. And that's the point of the Orange Pill app. Stack friends who stack sats. As we're seeing, Bitcoin as a movement is unstoppable. It's getting into the main stage. And as a Bitcoin, I don't like using the word community, but as a Bitcoin community, it's super important that you get involved with other Bitcoiners, that you're building these relationships in real time. You're taking them off the internet. Again, stack friends who stack sats. Okay, guys, as I was mentioning, we're going to cover some here. Let me full screen myself for a second. As I was mentioning, and I was talking about this last week, one of the big things that I was looking forward to, or rather was kind of watching, is the response that we're going to see from the corporate press in regards to Trump being at the Bitcoin conference. And we got some good headlines. Some of them are positive, some of them are negative, but you're seeing that as Trump is a divisive figure, a polarizing figure, as the corporate press would name him, would illustrate it, now it is forcing that Bitcoin conversation, and the corporate press has to talk about Bitcoin. Other politicians are going to have to talk about Bitcoin, like we just mentioned. The Democratic Party, well, a lot of the people in the Democratic Party are starting to pull away from Elizabeth Warren's anti-crypto stance. They're starting to realize that they need to embrace Bitcoin if they want to maintain their positions of power. And this is what Bitcoin's all about. It's about taking power back to the people, keeping politicians honest, keeping the system honest, and hopefully, as we move longer in time, eliminating the corruption that we are currently living throughout, the world right now. This isn't just an American issue, but of course, this is an American-centric show. And hey, like, American politics is what everyone pays attention to, whether you're in America or not. And so this is an election season for us in America. And I think as we move closer to the election season, this Bitcoin conversation is gonna increase gradually, then suddenly. More people are going to either come out for Bitcoin, or we're probably going to see a lot of people come out against Bitcoin. And we say it all the time. Bitcoin has a way of showing people's incentives, showing their true incentives. And this is the beauty of Bitcoin. This is what winning looks like. This is how we win, is by everyone and their mother having to talk about Bitcoin. All right, so let's look at some of these headlines. I pulled them up for you. I'm over here on apnews.com. And we have their headline: Trump calls for U.S. to be the crypto capital of the planet in appeal to Nashville Bitcoin Conference. Or I'm over here on Reuters. Trump cites China competition and vowing to create Bitcoin stockpile. The stockpile meme is actually kind of good. That's actually a good meme. Actually, man, I'll bring that up afterwards. There was an interesting part of the RFK Jr. speech that I was just reminded of. But let's go to more of these headlines. NBC News, Trump hails crypto at largest Bitcoin conference. The GOP presidential candidate promised to make America the world leader in cryptocurrency technology. Or, I had the New York Times article here. Hold on. Let me see if I could do this in real time for you. Get this on archive because this is a good one. Let's see. Sorry, guys. I don't have a New York Times subscription, but you can see here, Trump appealing to Bitcoin fans, vows U.S. will be crypto capital of the planet. Donald Trump, speaking at a Bitcoin conference, told cryptocurrency holders that he would end the persecution of their industry. We have Forbes just absolutely killing it. Shouts out to all of the Bitcoiners that are working with Forbes. Absolute game changer. Congress introduces radical Bitcoin bill as Trump primes price for $100 trillion surge to replace gold. We have the Washington Post. Crypto fanatics flock to Trump, hoping to make Bitcoin great again. Once a crypto skeptic, Trump spoke Saturday to Bitcoin supporters whose backing and campaign checks he has come to covet. Or this one, which might be the best one. The Wall Street Journal, Trump adds crypto to his America First agenda. The Republican presidential candidate pledges to create a national Bitcoin stockpile and form a council to set regulatory policy. Now, another interesting part about the stream on Saturday is, of course, it was being streamed to Bitcoin Magazine, but it was also streamed to the Fox News YouTube channel. And at the time when I was watching it, I popped over to the Fox News stream. There was about 50,000 people watching Trump speak at the Bitcoin conference. Of course, 230,000 views. It's pretty decent in regards to what's going on the national political landscape. They got a lot of numbers. So it's going to show that, yes, Trump may have not have said what we all hoped and dreamed he would have said at the Bitcoin conference, but it is putting a spotlight on the Bitcoin movement in general. Like we said earlier, the fact that Trump even felt the need to go to a Bitcoin conference, I think speaks volumes. But my favorite post that I saw come out of this was from Zero Hedge. So Zero Hedge did a screenshot. And we got, Rizzo and Odell here. A little screenshot of the Bitcoin Conference Nashville Day 2 with 56,000 people watching live. And they're just comparing that, live comparison of the same stream or two different streams at the same time. And we got Vice President Harris delivers a keynote speech at Zeta Phi Beta sorority. And this is on the White House official YouTube channel with 822 people watching. Just absolutely incredible. Literally breaking the Overton window here. Oh, wait, hold on. Chris said I missed the best one. Yes, here we go. This one is the best one. All right, CNBC. Wait, where'd it go? Trump proposes strategic national crypto stockpile and, quote, never sell your Bitcoin. So as much as Bitcoiners may believe that, Trump's speechwriter may have dropped the ball, they wanted him to go farther down the rabbit hole. They wanted him to really explode the Overton window. You're seeing that these headlines are on all of the main corporate press sites. Everyone and their mother has to have a Bitcoin stance now. So love them or hate them, Trump has thrusted Bitcoin into the mainstream consciousness. But as we say here at Simply Bitcoin, and all of our Bitcoiner friends say, it's not that Bitcoin needs Trump. It's that Trump needs Bitcoin. It's not that Bitcoin needs politicians. It's that politicians need Bitcoin. Bitcoin as a movement, as a freedom movement, as a financial success movement, as something that you need to hold so that you can thrive in the 21st century. It's becoming the movement, and we're in the early days. And again, shouts out to the Bitcoin Magazine team for making the stream happen, for getting all these people together. And I know I see a few people in the chat going like, oh, politicians are speaking at the Bitcoin Mag conference. I'm never going to go again. Sorry, bro. Like, it's only going to increase from here. Love it or hate it, politics does affect our lives. And as I keep saying, and I keep kind of wrapping my mind around it, it's becoming clearer and clearer to me that as Bitcoiners, it's very important that we get involved. Doesn't mean that you need to run to be president. It just means you need to get involved on the grassroots level. Bitcoin as a political movement, because it is apolitical money, is going to change the world. and politics is on our front doorstep. And as much as you might not like these politicians, as much as you might think that these speeches fell short, I think it's very important that we get our message heard, that we inform the script writers out there so that they know what's happening. And again, just rehashing what Sophie said, which I thought was the funniest thing. She's like, Trump literally reading the speech for the first time is questioning his own script writer in real time. I'm like, wait, really? Like, Bitcoin's going to do this? Like, no way. So you can just see that the Bitcoin conversation is going mainstream. Yes, Bitcoin's been around for 15 years. Yes, Bitcoin is at what's a market cap $1.3 trillion right now. And yes, a lot of people think Bitcoin, or they're late to Bitcoin, but this is the beginning of Bitcoin taking over the mind share of the world. And hey, love it or hate it, this is where we are in the story. And as a Bitcoin news channel, we got to cover all the new developments, talk about everything going on in the space and the response to Bitcoin. So, hey, we're here. Corporate press is starting to take notice, and they can no longer just bully us and relegate us to oblivion and into the corners of, oh, they're just internet nerd money, they're criminals, they're money launderers, they're what they used to call us, illiterate, financial illiterates. Like, Bitcoin is here. It's not going away. And now everyone is waking up to this, and you just love to see it. Anyways, Chris, what's your thoughts on the response to Trump at the Bitcoin conference?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, a big thing is, like, everyone's kind of heard of Trump around the world. So the thing is, like, Trump's not using Bitcoin, or at least he's trying to, but like Bitcoin's really using Trump. And what I mean by that is he's being the megaphone or the propaganda arm, as Opti's hat says, Bitcoin propagandist, or like, the Bitcoin propagandist, basically Bitcoin propaganda department. It's using Trump's megaphone and reach of him being a former president, maybe a potential president again, and basically sending this message out to the world. If you don't think Putin's watching this, if you don't think Europeans are watching this, if you don't think Zelensky's watching this, or hearing about, like, oh, Trump's going to a Bitcoin conference, what's that about? Like, it's coming into the zeitgeist. It's moving the Overton window. Bitcoin is becoming a political issue. Literally, like, candidates are fighting over our votes by trying to pander to us. And, they're trying to get our vote. One thing I wanted to bring out, shouts out to the Bitcoin Magazine team, the general admission day 2 had over 1 million views on the stream. So obviously it's a live stream. It's a long day. Obviously Trump was speaking that day, but Opti pulled up the Fox News Trump speech, that had 250,000 views on it. But the live stream itself had over 1 million views, which is a huge, huge accomplishment. I think industry day one had 145,000 views. And then general day one, so the second day of the conference, had 310,000 views. So, ramping up, Bitcoin's price is going up. One of the first conferences that the price actually went up after a conference instead of going down. It didn't pump, but it didn't dump like it normally does. So, at least for the Bitcoin conferences, at least it normally traditionally dumps. But I think we're preparing for a huge bull market. I definitely think Bitcoin is on the docket for 2024 election cycle. And Bitcoins are pandering to us. This is what winning's like.
Love it. Love it. Simp, usually we're saying don't simp for politicians and billionaires, but now we have the politicians and billionaires simping for Bitcoiners, and you just love to see it. And also, Chris, you reminded me of something that came out over the weekend. As we heard, Trump announce, and RFK Jr. announced a strategic Bitcoin reserve plan and then introduced that idea. We also heard that similar talks are coming out of Hong Kong. So, like, this is being heard everywhere. This is what winning looks like. This is what breaking the echo chamber looks like. As much as you may not like politics, as much as you may think it is corrupt, it's fake, now this is a real conversation. We are being, I would say, as a Bitcoiner, we've always been legitimate, but now in the normie mind share, Bitcoin is a legitimate movement. Bitcoin is something that they need to hold, and it's only going to increase as the Bitcoin price goes up. So, guys, this is a good development. As much as you may not like politics, this is a great development in the Bitcoin space. Jump in, Chris, before we wrap up.
Yeah, I mean, one thing, if anything we've learned about politicians and their history, there's two ways to get their attention: it's to criticize them or praise them. And obviously Trump in his speech criticized China and Xi. So, if you don't think President Xi is talking about it, maybe kind of, Opti, Nico, and I have been talking about this for over 3 years now. In 2021, when China banned Bitcoin mining, obviously we know that there's underground Bitcoin mining in the country, or better yet, the Chinese Chinese government confiscated rigs and mining themselves. But it seems like he's opening up his stance and maybe realizing the blunder that he made 3 years ago of being like locking down Bitcoin mining, not allowing it, or like pushing it out of the country. He's like, oh shit, like maybe that was the wrong thing. And especially with Trump's quote from a few weeks ago, or even I think it was from a few weeks ago. He's like, I want to mine all the Bitcoin in the United States of America. A little bit bombastic, causes centralization issue, obviously, but that in very Trump-esque, like we're going to mine all the Bitcoin. All the Bitcoin's going to be in the United States, like, very Trump-esque. But, Xi and, I love him or hate him, like Jason Lowery talks about this, like the game theory of nation states and kind of using Bitcoin network to try and fight over hash rate in their own individual countries. So I think this is a big deal. I think Xi, for getting criticized by President Trump, sees Trump as a threat and definitely is like, all right, shit, like maybe I need to look into this Bitcoin thing. I don't want Trump in the United States to have all the Bitcoin. They definitely want to posture and have it as an asset themselves. We've seen from 2008 with China dumping their treasuries. They don't really trust the Federal Reserve and the U.S. Treasury market. Obviously, they're trying to do things with BRICS, but a neutral reserve, unbiased money such as Bitcoin can be used. Like I said, Bitcoin is for enemies. So the U.S. can use it as well as China can use it. So I think Xi is definitely paying attention to this speech, and I definitely think he's trying to rethink his stance at this moment.
Yeah, man. As we've seen in the last recent weeks, the Bitcoin game theory is playing out in real time, and the leaders to adopt Bitcoin, the countries that adopt Bitcoin first, the individuals that adopt Bitcoin first will lead, they will win. And the fact that we're seeing Trump and the Republican Party embrace Bitcoin, you're seeing the feedback from other world leaders, you're seeing the response from the Democrats as well. It's like he who adopts Bitcoin first will end up thriving. And this is the game theory play out in real time. This isn't just happening in the US, this is happening globally. Now everyone has to have a Bitcoin stance. And if you fall behind, if you fight Bitcoin, then you're going to have fun staying poor. And I don't know about you, but I want to ensure that every single one of you guys out there is living a good life, that you are succeeding, that you are wealthy, that you are happy, that you are healthy. This is how we win, is by instilling the Bitcoin principles into every single one of the people on planet Earth. And this is how we usher in a bright orange future, is by more people saving in Bitcoin, more people using Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin network starting to proliferate and dethrone the dollar as the money of the world. Anyways, Chris, we're running a little long today, but thank you for showing up, bro. Chris will be joining us on the show a little more. But Chris, thank you, bro. Plug your Twitter. Appreciate you coming on today. Let's where can the people find you?
Of course, Opti, always love kicking it with you. You can find me on Twitter at Chris Alemo and then the number 6. And then you can find me at Nostr at npub1345. I'm just kidding. You can find me at Chris Alemo at b.tc on Nostr. That's my NIP5 identifier. Opti thought I was going to go and do the whole,
you were going to do it.
Do the whole 52 character thing.
Amazing. You got me, dude. I literally thought you were going to do it. Anyways, Chris, man, it was good hanging out with you this week. Thanks for filling in today. And man, we're going to slide you in on the show more often. So appreciate it, bro. Hang out behind the scenes as I wrap today's show up. All right, guys. All right. Well, we're back to our normally scheduled show. Nico will be back tomorrow. His plane, I think, got a little delayed, so he wasn't able to make it on today's show. We might rehash a little of this stuff tomorrow so you guys can hear Nico's take on all of the stuff we heard out of the Bitcoin conference. But man, we will be your guide through the separation of money and state. And as you can tell, we are hitting the main stage. We're hitting the mainstream. Everyone will have to have a Bitcoin stance moving forward. You are either for Bitcoin or you are for CBDCs. You need to embrace Bitcoin. You need to save in Bitcoin. You need to take your Bitcoin off the exchanges. You need to run a node. Do not trust, verify. If you think we provided you value on today's show, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. We love you. We'll be back tomorrow at the same time as usual, 12:15 p.m. Eastern time. On that note, guys, have a good rest of your day. Get outside, touch some grass, eat some good food. This is what winning looks like.
It was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, on a mission to enable independence.